Sometimes, the forest doesn't just hide wildlife, it hides the truth. 19-year-old Haley Bishop set out on a solo camping trip in Yellowstone National Park. She sent one final text to her sister, then vanished. No signs of struggle, no footprints. Her tent was zipped shut from the inside. Just gone. 3 weeks of search parties, nothing. Eventually, she was declared presumed dead. But 6 months later, a hiker stumbled upon an abandoned backcountry cabin. Inside, candle wax, claw marks, and a scrap of paper that read, "I saw him again. He's not human." Then, another disappearance then. A body placed near a bear den, no animal wounds. Only ligature marks. And buried nearby, a burned camping permit, in Haley's name. As her sister Jess digs deeper, a name begins to emerge. Jude Matthews, a wildlife photographer with no digital past and a very real obsession with isolation, control, and preserving the pure. When Jess goes missing too, the forest finally gives something back: a woman, half frozen in her hands, a torn journal, Haley's story, Jess's confessions, and one final message. Scratched in desperation, Jude Matthews, kill me before he finds this. This isn't just a story about going missing. This is a pattern, a ritual, a predator hiding in plain sight. And, the scariest part, he's still out there. The last thing Haley Bishop ever sent was a text: signals. Dying, love you. See you Sunday. That was a Friday afternoon. 4:52 p.m., she was somewhere deep in the southern stretch of Yellowstone, just past the Slough Creek trailhead, where cell phone towers vanish and even bears tread lightly. She'd planned it for months, a solo trip. No boyfriend drama, no college roommates blasting music, no Wi-Fi, no pressure, just trees, stars, and silence. Peace, she called it. A spiritual cleanse before junior year. But when Sunday came, she didn't return. When Monday came, she still hadn't. By Tuesday morning, her parents filed the missing persons report. Day 1, the ranger station ranger. Lucas Wynn didn't flinch when the call came in. Missing hikers weren't rare. Yellowstone had plenty, but something about Haley's case unsettled him. The voice of her mother on the line was brittle, nearly shattered. She said she'd come back Sunday. She always comes back. The Bishop family had money, not the flashy kind, but the old, careful kind. Her father, Raymond Bishop, was a retired prosecutor. That meant pressure from above. Media heat, timelines to meet. Search parties were mobilized within hours. Day 2. The campsite took them 16 hours to find the tent. It was perched on a slope near a rocky stream, tucked behind trees like it didn't want to be found. The yellow canvas still glowed faintly in the dusklight. Undisturbed. Inside: a pair of muddy hiking boots, carefully aligned. Her sleeping bag, still unrolled, a small tin of almonds, an open paperback of Into the Wild. Nothing looked out of place. For one thing, the zipper was closed from the inside. Ranger Wynn stood at the edge of the tent, staring. No torn canvas, no claw marks, no drag trails, he muttered. He turned to the officer beside him. Where's her phone? Not here. Wynn looked toward the trees, suddenly cold. So she just walked off into the woods barefoot. The other man didn't answer. Day 4, the helicopter sweep infrared. Drones, dogs, they threw everything they had at it, but the forest remained quiet. No heat signatures, no sound, no movement. Even the dogs acted strange. One bloodhound sat down and refused to walk. Another circled the tent 3 times, then howled, long and low, like it was mourning something. The Bishop family was flown in. Jess, Haley's younger sister, screamed at the search coordinator, "Check again. She's not stupid. She wouldn't just get lost." Raymond Bishop remained silent, staring at the sky. He knew something. You could see it in the way his jaw tensed every time they said the word accident. Haley's Instagram went silent, her credit cards untouched, her phone never pinged again. The FBI got involved briefly, then pulled back. Too little evidence. No crime. Just a girl who walked into the wild and didn't walk back out. She she stood alone in the middle of nowhere, arms crossed. Shivering slightly despite the sunlight, the wind moved the pine needles in slow swaying patterns. From above, the trees swallowed her whole dot. No trail, no scream, just green dot in the Bishop home. Her room stayed untouched. Her laptop screen showed a frozen Spotify playlist. Lana Del Rey Ride on her wall. A pinned photo of her and Jess at the lake last summer. Underneath, scribbled in Sharpie, "Run if you want, but the wild always wins." 2 weeks later, the official story was written in passive voice. Subject presumed deceased. Possible exposure or predation. No indication of foul play. It was easier that way. Clean, no need to ask hard questions, until Jess found the voicemail. Dialogue voicemail playback. Haley whispering, "Hey, I know I said I'd be off-grid, but something's wrong. I think someone followed me. There's a guy." Static. Haley again, voice shaking. "He wasn't at the trailhead, but now he's here. I saw him again. I don't know how." Long silence. Then, just breathing. Then, a final word. Jess. Back to present. The voicemail had no timestamp. The call was never logged. The signal was too weak to trace. Jess took it to the Park Service. They listened, nodded, told her it was probably a prank, or an old recording, or stress talking. But Jess knew Haley's voice, and Haley wasn't afraid of the forest. She was afraid of something else, something that could follow her, something that could find her out here, where no one was watching. 3 weeks. That's how long they searched for her. 3 weeks of helicopters slicing across the tree canopy, hounds howling through the valleys, and volunteers calling her name until their voices cracked. Each day bled into the next, every sunrise dimmer than the one before. The tent stayed, where it was silent, zipped, undisturbed, like a tomb. On day 22, Yellowstone issued the statement. It came mid-morning, tucked inside an email to the press. "After exhaustive efforts, we regret to inform that Haley Bishop is presumed deceased. No signs of foul play. Death likely due to misadventure or predation." The words were clinical, designed to sound like closure. They only opened more wounds. Jess didn't believe it. Couldn't, wouldn't. Her sister wasn't clumsy, she wasn't reckless, and she sure as hell didn't vanish without leaving a mark. Their father, Raymond, didn't attend the press briefing. He sat alone in his den, lit only by the glow of a laptop screen looping Haley's GPS logs over and over. Lucas Wynn, now unofficially benched from the case, reviewed drone footage he wasn't supposed to have. It was from day 4 of the search. A thermal scan looping the area near Haley's camp. For 5 seconds, a figure appeared humanoid, but off, it stood to still. Its heat signature distorted like static clinging to a shape. It faced the tent. Watching. Waiting. When Wynn submitted the clip for analysis, it vanished. Corrupted file, gone. Encoding error, the tech guy muttered, shrugging. Humidity messes with storage sometimes. But Wynn had flown hundreds of these missions, never lost a single frame. Not until now. The press conference was a well-oiled performance. Behind the Ranger, Haley's laminated photo flapped lightly in the breeze, smiling like nothing had happened. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled. But no one asked the right questions. No one mentioned the voicemail Jess had recovered. No one asked why a tent zipped from the inside had no footprints around it. She didn't just walk off. Raymond said to Wynn, his voice calm but burning, "I prosecuted liars and killers for 30 years. I know a story when I hear one." Jess, digging through Reddit forums and local message boards, found threads about a man, possibly a park regular who lived off-grid, appearing and disappearing near backcountry zones. Most of the comments were jokes. One said, "He's a ghost who only talks to girls." Another posted a blurry photo of a shadow near a tree line. It was dated 2 days after Haley vanished. She knew someone was out there, Jess told Wynn, her voice tight. "Now I do too." Wynn leaned in closer. "I saw something. On that footage, a figure, just standing there, like it belonged." In the trees, Raymond exhaled slowly. "You're not crazy. They just want you to feel like you are. Later that night, in a dusty ranger outpost, long since abandoned for upgrades, a printer blinked to life. It spat out a faded map zone 7 circled in red ink. No official trails, no tourist routes, and scribbled in the margins, barely legible, old structure here. Hours away, under the cloak of a cloudy sky, a solo hiker veered off path near Slough Creek. He spotted something wooden, half buried in snow, hidden by undergrowth, an old cabin. Inside, there were candle stubs melted into the floorboards, scratch marks on the door, animal bones in a corner, and nailed to the wall with rusted wire. A torn scrap of paper, 5 words, written in panic. The forest doesn't forget, it buries, it erases, but it never truly forgets. 6 months passed. The story of Hailey Bishop faded into the usual Cycle 1 podcast episode. 2 Reddit threads, 3 TikToks with spooky music and zoomed-in tent photos. Then silence, until a man named Eli Norwood went hiking off-trail, chasing elk migrations through unmapped backcountry terrain. Park services had quietly scrubbed from tourist maps decades ago. Snow still clung to the northern slopes, but spring was trying to push through. That's when Eli found it. Half sunken behind a wall of evergreens and clawed over by time, the cabin looked like it had grown from the dirt itself. There was no path leading to it, no visible roof from the air, just rot, cold, and a wooden door that creaked open like it hadn't been touched in years. But inside, everything said otherwise. The walls were covered in black marker graffiti symbols, words, spirals drawn over and over again. The floor held the wax remains of melted candles, dozens of them. A moldy mattress leaned against one wall, slashed and bleeding stuffing. Near the corner, bones animal, stripped clean. But what stopped Eli? Cold was the note. It was nailed into the wood near the back door, written in all caps with a dying black marker. I saw him again. He's not human. He took photos. Then he ran. 2 days later, the cabin had burned to the ground. When the ranger station finally received the report and photos, the staff treated it like a joke, a hoax, a trespassing hunter seeking viral fame. They filed it quietly, but someone forwarded it to Jess. The email had no subject, no sender, just the images. The last one, a close-up of the note, shook her hands hard, enough to drop her phone. Because she recognized the handwriting. It was Hailey's. There was no doubt she hadn't seen that cabin before. But the spirals on the wall, those had been with them since childhood. Hailey used to draw them in the corners of her notebook pages, in the steam on bathroom mirrors. Why do you do that? Jess had asked once. They were 13. Hailey's answer had chilled her even then, because I dream about them. They're in the woods, and the more I draw them, the less real they become. Jess had forgotten that moment. Until now. She printed the note and took it to the park office herself. The ranger behind the counter raised a brow, then smiled emptily. Ma'am, that cabin was already under review. It's not linked to any active investigation. Jess leaned in. It was linked to my sister. He nodded slowly. We're sorry for your loss. That's not an answer. He didn't give one. She wasn't surprised. The next day, Jess drove to Montana and met with Eli Norwood herself. They sat on the back porch of a gas station diner, drinking burnt coffee and trying not to sound crazy. I didn't imagine it, he said. I know what animal bones look like. These weren't scattered. They were arranged. Jess didn't blink. Do you remember anything else? Eli hesitated. There was this smell, like rust and dirt and something dead, not rotting, just wrong. Back home, Jess pinned the printed photo of the note next to Hailey's last known GPS ping. Then she opened a box from under her bed, one she hadn't touched in years. Inside were journals, drawings, letters, and a folder labeled Dream Maps. Hailey's most of it was nonsense. Doodles, scribbled loops. But on one page, something jumped out, an outline of trees, a stream, and an X written beneath. The place that watches back. Jess didn't know if it was real, but she knew where to start. She messaged, Lucas Wynne. They met in a parking lot outside an abandoned visitor center neutral ground. He looked older, thinner, more tired. But the way he studied the photo of the note, it wasn't disbelief. It was confirmation. I tried to tell them, he muttered. About the drone footage, the glitch, they buried it. Jess nodded. What else are they hiding? He didn't answer, but he opened his trunk. Inside, 3 worn map-sold ranger charts with faded markings. One circled zone stood out. Wynne tapped it. This is where your sister's last trail ends. And this, he pointed to another faint X, is where that cabin stood. There's a mile of forest between them, no one's been willing to touch. Jess looked up at him. Then we touch it. Later that night, she stared at her wall of pinned evidence. Haley's handwriting, Haley's spirals, the photo of that torn-up mattress in the cabin, and something else, a blurry still from that corrupted drone footage Wynne had salvaged. Just a shadow, a vague humanoid shape at the tree line. But now, she could see it more clearly. Its outline echoed the shape in Haley's sketch, thin, slouched, too long, unnatural. There had never been just one mystery. There were two, where Haley had gone, and what had followed her there. At sunrise, Jess zipped her pack and printed a copy of Haley's hand-drawn map. She wasn't going to wait for another 6 months. She was going into the trees, and this time, she wasn't afraid of getting lost. She was afraid of what might already be waiting. The forest wasn't done, barely 2 weeks after Jess returned home from her meeting with Lucas Wynne. Another hiker vanished, a man this time. Mid-30s, local regular backcountry permit holder. His name was Noah Driscoll, a loner. He'd left for a 3-day hike and never made it to his second waypoint. Search teams deployed on day 5. By day 7, they found what was left of him, or rather where he had been left. Half dragged into the mouth of a bear den, shoes missing, backpack shredded. Face down, arms stretched unnaturally behind him, like a marionette cut mid-dance. At first, they thought it was an animal attack, until they turned him over. There were no claw marks, no bite trauma, not a single tooth puncture on the neck, spine, or thighs. But there were bruises. Thin, even ligature marks around the wrists and ankles. Something had restrained him, and then pierced him at small punctures down the spine. Spaced like surgical incisions, the coroner wrote 2 words in the margin of her preliminary notes, not wildlife. The case should have gone federal. It didn't. The file was quietly marked closed under the explanation of probable post-mortem predation by scavengers. But Lucas Wynne wasn't buying it, and neither was Jess. Especially when she learned what had been found 30 feet from the den's entrance. A crumpled piece of damp paper. The forest had tried to erase it with rain and mud, but part of the ink still clung it. Was the top half of a Yellowstone camping permit. The name printed at the top faded, but unmistakable. Haley Bishop. Jess stared at the photos for hours. She remembered helping Haley fill out that form. She remembered her sister laughing when she checked the box labeled solo. But this paper, it looked burned, charred at the bottom. Why would it be near a fresh kill site, unless someone wanted it found? Or, worse, someone wanted to return to the beginning. Wynne met her at a trailhead cafe outside Cook City. It was pouring, the kind of rain that made the trees look like they were weeping. Jess slid the file across the table. They're calling it a bear mauling, she said. But that's not a bear kill, that's a message. Wynne didn't argue. I saw the coroner's full report, he said. He was restrained, strangled, then stabbed with something. Metal, precise. They pulled something out of his spine. Jess leaned back. Like what? Small fragments. Silver. The lab's still testing it. She blinked. Silver. Who the hell uses silver? Wynne didn't answer. The tent was already pitched when they arrived at the crime scene the next day. The bear den loomed in the background like an open mouth. Wynne walked the perimeter. His eyes weren't on the blood. They were on the patterns. The footprints around the site weren't consistent with animal movement. They were circular, pacing. Watching. Jess crouched near the scorched piece of the permit. It's hers, she said quietly. This wasn't left behind. This was planted. He nodded. And if it was planted, then someone's keeping her things. A moment passed. Jess asked, "How many people do you think are missing and never reported?" Wynne didn't hesitate. "Dozens, maybe more." She looked toward the tree line. "Then this isn't about Haley anymore." The coroner's report arrived by encrypted email that night. Wynne opened it under dim lamplight, a lone dot among the medical jargon and cold autopsy terms. Something stuck out. Dot in Noah Driscoll's stomach was a substance they couldn't identify. A black residue, metallic, like ash but magnetic. It wasn't dirt, it wasn't blood, it wasn't natural. That same night, Jess dug through Haley's childhood sketchbooks again. She wasn't looking for answers anymore. She was looking for warnings. She found a page from years ago, maybe age 10, a drawing of what looked like a cave, not quite a den, something deeper. In front of it, stick figures. One lying flat, one standing over it. The standing one had no face, just black scribbles. Above it, in childish handwriting, "If I go in, I won't come back." Jess ran her fingers over the drawing, then circled one phrase written in the corner. "It wears fur, but it's not an animal." They gathered at Wynne's house, Jess, Lucas, and one of his old trail buddies. A quiet Navajo man named Daniel who had worked in wildlife tracking for over a decade. Jess showed him the sketch, the claw marks, the autopsy notes. Daniel said nothing for a long time, then finally muttered, "It's not new." Wynne frowned. "What do you mean?" Daniel looked out the window, like checking the shadows. "There's a story from the elders about something that mimics the wilderness. Pretends to be bear, wolf, man. It chooses who it follows, and it never stops." Jess laughed bitterly. "You're saying it's what? Some kind of spirit?" Daniel looked back at her. "I'm saying your sister wasn't the first. And that guy in the den, he won't be the last." They left just before dawn. Jess walked the trailhead once more before getting in the truck. The trees seemed to breathe. Around her, each rustle in the leaves felt aware. She turned one last time to look toward the path where Haley had vanished. For the first time, she didn't see empty woods. She saw a pattern. As they drove off, none of them noticed the fresh set of boot prints forming behind them, where the ground was too dry for tracks to exist. Not large, not animal, but deliberate and following. The forest had given Jess clues, burned notes, trail fragments, half-lies whispered through bureaucracy. But now it was time for Haley to speak, and she did. With a password that wasn't a password at all, just one word, spirals. Jess typed it into the cloud drive recovery field, holding her breath. The screen flickered. Loaded. The folder was hidden. JH_logs inside were 7 voice memos, 5 handwritten PDFs, and 1 document titled, "Read this if I go." She clicked. The first entry, March 14th. Met him again today. Jude, he was waiting by the bookstore, didn't even text, just appeared. Jess paused, rewound, played again. "He makes it feel like I'm not broken. I know he's older, I know he's intense. But with him, I don't have to think." There was more. Jess listened to all of it. Each recording more erratic. The calm in Haley's voice, thinning, then cracking. By April, Haley's entries had shifted. "He asked where I'd be in May. I didn't tell him. Not exactly, but now I think maybe I didn't have to." Then the document, Haley's journal-style letter, typed, "Stream of consciousness, raw." Jess read it slowly. "It started when I spilled coffee on his book. I laughed. He didn't. That's how I knew he was different. He says I glow when I talk about disappearing. He says people like me don't belong in the world we were given. Jude told me once that he lives better in shadows. That he doesn't like the sound of cities. That he was born backwards." I thought it was a metaphor. The way he talks, it's like he already knows what you're going to say. Like he's been through it before, and he's waiting for you to catch up. He didn't ask for my camping route. He just said, "Make sure you bring enough for 2. I think I love him. I think I'm scared of him." Jess scrolled to the final line. "If I don't come back, don't trust what they find." She leaned back in the chair, every nerve tingling. It wasn't just the note in the cabin, or the journal, or the burned permit. It was the pattern, the spiral tightening. Haley hadn't vanished randomly. She'd been watched. Later that night, Jess shared the files with Wynne. He drove out within the hour. They sat in her living room, the glow of her laptop bouncing off the wall, flickering over Haley's words. "She never told us about him," Jess whispered. "I never even heard the name Jude." Wynne stared at the screen. "Did you check her photo backups? Anything tagged?" Jess shook her head. "Nothing. It's like he didn't exist, or didn't want to be seen." The next morning, Jess found one more thing. Buried deep in her sister's cloud storage, mislabeled as chemnotes_spring, was a video. Just 6 seconds long. Haley, holding the camera low, her hair windblown, her eyes wide, uncertain dot in the corner of the screen. Someone is standing. Back turned, still dot, watching the woods. Then the video glitches just once and cuts to black dot. Jess didn't sleep that night, not because of fear, but because of certainty. Because she had seen that same posture in the drone footage, the same frame, the same shape. Jude wasn't a memory. He wasn't a secret. He was a shadow following them both. The call came just after dawn. Lucas Wynne, ranger, investigator, the only person left taking Jess seriously, had been officially placed on leave. No press statement, no warning, just a line of bureaucratic coldness stamped across an email, effective immediately. Administrative leave, pending review of conduct. The news didn't surprise him. He'd pushed too far. Asked questions no one wanted. Asked, reopened files they thought buried. But what did surprise him was how fast it happened right after Jess accessed Haley's journal entries, right after she sent them to him. Someone was still watching. Jess drove straight to his cabin without calling ahead. She found him sitting on the porch, arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the horizon like it owed him answers. "I'm guessing you heard," he said, without looking up. "I did." She sat beside him. "What the hell is going on?" Wynne exhaled through his nose. "I broke chain of command. Shared case data with a civilian. Pursued a closed case." Jess folded her arms. "This isn't just about Haley, is it?" He didn't answer. Not right away. Inside, the cabin was dim and cluttered. Maps, files, Polaroids pinned like a conspiracy web to the walls. But Jess's eyes locked onto one photo near the far corner. A girl, blonde, younger than Haley, smiling, wearing a hiking pack. The caption read, "Cara Finn, disappeared, 2013. Glacier, Basin Trail." Jess stood in front of it. "Who was she?" Wynne's voice was low. "She was my first cold case. I was a rookie then. We found her backpack, her journal, her boots placed side by side, just like Haley." Jess blinked, and no body, just one thing. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a sealed evidence bag. Inside, a single blonde braid, tied with twine. Jess stared at it. Her throat tightened. "I braided Haley's hair the same way. Before her trip." Wynne nodded. "So did Kara's sister." A silence fell between them. Heavy and wrong. Jess sat down hard, mind spinning. Was there any connection between them? Wynne shook his head. Different states, different years, different everything, except the hair. He pulled out a second folder. "There's more. 5 women, different parks. Over the last 15 years, solo hikers vanished. Each left behind one intentional detail. Folded clothes, a placed necklace, a trail camera mysteriously wiped." Jess whispered. "And the braid, 2 more. Same twine, same knot." She covered her mouth. "Why hasn't this been investigated?" Wynne's eyes met hers. "Because it doesn't make sense, and because I wasn't supposed to keep looking." The storm outside was building. Wind screamed against the windows. Tree branches clawed at the roof like angry fingers. Inside, Jess flipped through Kara's file. Her journal pages were thin and water-damaged, but legible. Doodles, trail notes. Then this line, circled in red. "He followed me for 3 nights. He doesn't walk right, and he never blinks." Jess ran her fingers over the paper. She described the same thing Haley sketched. Wynne nodded. I've been chasing shadows for over a decade. Jess looked at him. Why didn't you say anything sooner? I did, he replied. No one listened. Later that night, Jess sat alone in Wynn's kitchen with a cup of black coffee and too many thoughts. She stared at Kara's photograph. Blonde hair, wide smile. Too trusting. The files in Wynn's folder blurred together, names, dates, photos, victims all sharing. One unspoken thread, not connected by time or geography, but by something much older. Something watching. Something choosing. Wynn returned from the shed with a box of gear boots, raincoats, and a worn trail book full of marked coordinates. Jess stood. What's that? Our next move, he said. We go to the creek, the one where Haley marked her dream map. The one they've accidentally left off, the ranger-issued trail maps. Jess hesitated. What if we're not the ones doing the hunting anymore? He looked at her. We never were. Outside, the wind died suddenly. The trees stopped swaying. Jess moved to the window. Drawn by the stillness, she squinted into the dark. And for just a second, only one, she swore she saw a shape across the clearing. Standing between two pine trees, tall, watching, unmoving. Gone. When she blinked, she stepped back, blood cold. We need to go, she said. Wynn grabbed the map and nodded behind them. The evidence wall whispered in paper rustle, as if breathing. Somewhere out there, beyond the marked paths and comfort of logic, something had braided a girl's hair and watched her vanish. Now, it was watching again, and it knew Jess was coming. The footage surfaced quietly, no headlines. No grand revelation. A tourist named Colin McRae had been driving back from Lamar Valley at 3:17 a.m. on the morning Haley disappeared. His dashcam caught something. He uploaded it to a hiking forum, curious if anyone could explain what he saw. Most didn't notice. A few joked about Bigfoot. A handful zoomed in, squinted, and moved on. But Jess didn't. Jess paused the frame, screen grabbed it, and enhanced the contrast until the shadows bled into definition. There, 2 miles from Haley's last GPS, pink stood a man. Tall, thin, barefoot, and in his arms a blue sleeping bag. The same navy blue Ray model Haley carried. Jess remembered buying it with her. Haley had insisted on the color, said it reminded her of dusk. She forwarded the still to Wynn. 10 minutes later, he was at her door. No doubt, he said, staring at the image. That's her gear. Jess leaned in. You see his hands? Wynn squinted. What about them? They're clean to clean. No dirt. No scratches. Not from these woods. Wynn said nothing, but his jaw tensed. They took the image to Daniel, the tracker. He examined it silently for several minutes before muttering, He's not standing, he's posed. Jess blinked. What? Look at his posture, Daniel said, feet parallel, shoulders square to the road. That's not someone walking, that's someone waiting. Wynn muttered, For who? Jess whispered, For the camera. Later that night, Jess opened Haley's photo archive again. She scanned every trip, every social post, searching for any hint of Jude's face. Nothing. He wasn't a ghost, but he wanted to be one. Then she checked the background of a beach selfie Haley had taken 2 months before Yellowstone. They're standing at the edge of a dock, nearly out of frame-wise, the same outline, same posture, same distance. The shadow didn't just follow her into the forest, it followed her before it. By morning, Wynn had obtained a clean copy of the original dashcam file. He took it to a friend, Beck, a retired forensic analyst who still dabbled in quiet work. Beck scrubbed the video frame by frame, enhancing the thermal bloom around the figure. This guy, Beck said, pointing at the screen, he's not just holding the bag, he's cradling it, like it's alive, or was. Jess's stomach turned. Are you saying Haley was? No, Beck said, firm. I'm saying this guy knew what he wanted. That's a deliberate grip. Possession, not rescue. Wynn asked, Can you get a face? Beck clicked and zoomed. The pixels pulsed. The screen blinked, then froze. The figure's head was tilted downward, but the mouth was smiling. The next day, the park issued a statement. They claimed the figure was likely a lost backpacker, and warned visitors not to speculate based on unverified digital content. Wynne nearly smashed his phone. They're covering again. Jess didn't flinch. They always do. She returned to the spot where the footage had been taken. The road was cracked, tree-lined, and dead quiet. No lights, no signs, just the hollow breath of the woods. Jess stood exactly where the figure had been. She looked down. No marks, no prints, no memory in the soil. But the air held weight. She pulled out Haley's map again. The dream map, that stretch of road crossed near the edge of the pine zone, the one Haley had marked with a spiral and one word, waits. That night, Jess opened her window for the first time in days. She needed air. She stood there, staring into the darkness beyond her porch. The sky was black, moonless. A sound soft and unnatural rustled near the trees at the edge of the property. Not wind, not animal. Jess didn't move. Then she saw it. Two faint lights, not eyes. Not flashlights. Reflections. As if someone or something was watching her from behind glass. She slammed the window shut, pulled the blinds. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Breath held, silence. Then a voice. Male, calm, familiar. You shouldn't be this close. Click. Wynne checked her security feed. It had been scrubbed. 5 minutes gone. Static in the log. Jess whispered. He's not afraid of being seen. Wynne nodded grimly. No, because he's been seen before, and no one stopped him. That night, Jess pinned the dashcam printout to the wall. Right beside it, Haley's spiral, then Kara's braid, then the forensic sketch of the twisted puncture. Wounds. She backed up and stared at the growing map of terror. A pattern was forming. This wasn't about Haley anymore. This was a ritual. They found him near the edge of the Absaroka Range. Technically, he hadn't been hiding, just living the kind of life that made being found feel ... irrelevant. Jude Matthews, wildlife photographer, solitude evangelist, no fixed address. Known to pitch camp deeper than most rangers ventured. He owned a cabin, off-grid and legally ambiguous, near Soda Butte Creek. The property line was vague, the taxes unpaid, but the place was still their bare bones. Moss-cloaked, built into the slope like it had grown straight from the dirt. Jess went with Wynne. To question him, she wasn't ready. Jude answered the door, barefoot, sunburnt eyes, a bit too still. Can I help you? He asked, in a voice smooth enough to sell trust. Wynne held up his badge. We'd like to talk. About Haley Bishop. The name didn't seem to surprise him. Just made him tilt his head like he was cataloguing the words. I don't know her, Jude said calmly. Never met her. Jess watched his eyes. Not a flicker. She mentioned you in her journal, she said, voice razor-thin. I doubt that. She described your cabin. He smiled, slow, deliberate. Lots of cabins out here. Inside, everything was neat. Too neat. A single sleeping bag rolled military tight, camera gear shelved with surgical precision. A kettle steaming, though there was no cup in sight. The walls were bare, no photos, no personal touches. You live here alone? Wynne asked. Jude nodded. That's kind of the point, isn't it? Jess scanned the space again. No signs of female presence. No toothbrush, no clothing, no hair ties, except ... A scarf tucked behind a pile of firewood, navy blue. Faintly floral. Jess didn't say anything, just memorized it back at the motel. Wynne was stone-faced. He's lying, Jess agreed. But gut feelings weren't evidence, so she dug deeper. The forum was buried. A password-protected board called Wild Return, preppers, off-griders, isolationists. But there was one thread that stopped her cold. User, Jude Wonder, post date, March 18th, 2 months before Haley vanished. The world sickens itself. What it needs is a cleanse. You find one, just one who hasn't been touched by it yet, and you keep them. You preserve them. That's what purity is, not innocence, unspoiled companionship. The replies were worse, echo chambers of rot disguised as philosophy. Dozens of men echoing the same rhetoric, take her where the noise can't reach. Let her forget what broke her. If she cries, she remembers. If she remembers, it means you haven't done enough. Jess sat back from the screen, heart hammering. This wasn't eccentricity, it was doctrine. Later that night, Jess's phone buzzed voicemail, unknown number, static at first, then a voice, low, distorted, but unmistakably male. You're asking too many questions. Let her go. The line cut, no caller ID, no message log. Jess played it 3 more times before sending it to Win. He called back immediately. You need to leave your motel now, she packed in under 10 minutes. Threw her backpack into the back seat and didn't look out the window until she hit the highway. Even then, she felt it. Like something was watching her in the rearview. Win met her at an old ranger outpost the park had abandoned years ago. There were no cameras, no Wi-Fi. Just wind in the gutters and paint peeling from forgotten walls. He handed her a file. Found this in an archived box I wasn't supposed to open. Inside, a photo dated 2014. Cara Finwin's first cold case. Posing near a riverbank. Behind her, out of focus but present, a figure. Same height. Same posture. Jess leaned in. Is that? He nodded. Same eyes. Same smirk. Same man 9 years earlier, miles away. Same shadow. Jude had been doing this a long time. Jess ran a reverse image search on Jude's known photos. Her fingers trembled with every click. 3 matches popped up. Buried in academic blogs and wildlife photographer showcases. All praised his ability to disappear into the landscape. One caption read, Jude Matthews, visual poet of silence. Another, more ominous. He becomes the woods. He waits. Win paced the cabin. Listen, we're building a pattern. But it's all circumstantial. He's careful. He's calculated. Jess stared at the fire. He's hunting. Later, when they returned to Jess's car parked outside, the driver's side door was ajar. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. Just one thing on the driver's seat. Haley's hair tie. Win spun around, weapon drawn, but no one was there. Only the trees. Whispering again, that night, Jess dreamed of spirals, not on paper, but carved into skin, braided into hair, etched into bark that bled when touched, and always behind her. The sound of footsteps that didn't crunch leaves. They hovered, they floated, in the morning. Jess made a decision. No more waiting. Jude had spent, but Jess had changed. She wasn't just searching anymore, she was hunting. Jude was out there, and something in her gut said he was circling back. She followed Haley's map one last time. Not the marked trails, not the spiral sketch, but the constellation of dates hidden in her journal. April 7th, April 28th, May 3. Win ran them through park activity logs and found a single match. A wildlife camera had gone offline on May 3rd. Last ping, an uncharted clearing 3 miles off Canyon Creek, behind a service trail that had been closed for wildfire erosion. Jess went alone. The trees thickened quickly, shutting out sound. Each step forward felt like sinking. Branches tugged at her jacket. The trail became little more than crushed moss and gut instinct. And then an opening. A clearing, dead quiet, ringed by fallen pine, like nature itself had recoiled. She stepped inside. It wasn't random. A circle, 8 blackened stones, arranged in near-perfect symmetry. Inside, melted candle wax, tiny piles of fur and bone, burned fabric strips blue. Frayed at the edges. Jess's eyes stung. She knelt down and saw it. A silver chain. Haley's locket. She picked it up, cold, still intact. The photo inside, gone. She didn't cry, she couldn't. She moved to the edge of the clearing. Something was wrong with the soil too loose in one patch. She dropped to her knees, heart pounding. With her bare hands, she dug. 6 inches down, her fingers hit cloth, then bone. A full hand, decayed. Fingernails curled inward, like it had died. Clenching the earth, Jess stumbled back, gasping it wasn't Haley. The body was older. Decades, clothes faded to threads. The jaw still intact, mouth open in silent scream. A necklace, different than Haley's. A tiny rusted pendant, JH. Wynne met her at the ranger substation with a field kit and a shovel. Together, they unearthed the grave under soft rain. "We'll get it tested," he said. "But that's not the first body he's buried here." Jess didn't respond. She held Haley's locket tight, knuckles white. Wynne glanced at the ritual circle. "This isn't just a kill site, it's a place." "For him." "A pattern," Jess murmured. "A scripture," Wynne replied. DNA results came back 2 days later. The remains belonged to Julia Hartley, a 26-year-old woman who vanished in 1991 from another National Park Olympic in Washington state. Same hair type, same height, also listed as a solo hiker. Jess stood in silence when the lab tech told her. Jess nodded to victims, 30 years apart. Same clearing, same layout, same locket design. This wasn't improvisation, it was ritual. Jess and Wynne laid out the map again, this time not looking for trails but for rhythms. How the missing women overlapped by season, location, lunar phase. It felt paranoid, superstitious till it didn't. 5 disappearances had occurred within 2 days of the new moon, all in different years. All within a 60-mile radius. Jude hadn't changed his methods, he'd just changed names. That night, Jess stared at Haley's old sketchbook again, not the words this time, but the spirals. There were 9 total, each slightly different. A number scrawled beneath each dot, the one drawn last. Number 6. She whispered it aloud. "There are more." Wynne looked up. "How many?" "At least 9. Then, we've only found 2. Later, she returned to the clearing alone. Not to search. To confront it, she stood at the center of the circle and imagined happy, terrified, manipulated, thinking she'd found someone who saw her, only to realize she was prey. A sound broke her thoughts. Footsteps, distant but deliberate. She turned. Flashlight raised. Nothing. But she felt her ties watching, waiting. She placed Haley's locket back on the ground, centered in the circle. "This ends here," she said aloud. Then she ran. When she got back to her truck, a note was stuck under the wiper blade, folded, taped, written in ink so faint it looked faded from time. She knew. She went willingly. That's what made her beautiful. On the back, another sentence just for words. The woman before her. Jess held the note with gloved hands. Her throat closed. Julia Hartley hadn't just been a victim. She'd been another Haley. Same spiral. Same locket. Same promise. Back at the outpost, Wynne pulled a fireproof box from his gear locker. Inside, a badge, a Zippo, and a photo. A young ranger, smiling arm around a woman with soft brown curls. "She's why I joined," he said quietly. "My sister." Jess looked closer. "Julia," he nodded once. "They never found her. Until now." Jess exhaled, heart cracking. Jude had touched both their lives long before either of them realized. She whispered, "This isn't about evidence anymore." Wynne looked at her, eyes hollow. "No, this is about justice." And far from them somewhere, deep in the forest, a man watched firelight from his distant camp. He held something in his hand. A new braid, tied in twine. Rain had washed most of the trail away. But Jess didn't turn back. Wynne had mentioned an old ranger shed no longer on official maps, abandoned. After a landslide 10 years earlier, she found it 2 hours into the hike, cloaked in moss, half collapsed, forgotten by everyone but the forest. She pried the door open. Inside, mold curled. The edges of old notebooks, metal rusted from the inside out. Gear long since rotted or stolen. But something strange remained on the top shelf of an open locker. A trail cam case, still zipped, still tagged, #CO7, cache zone. She checked the mesh pouch inside, one memory card. Back at the outpost, she didn't wait. She slid the card into Wynne's weatherproof laptop and opened the directory. Footage, loaded clips, dated weeks after Haley's disappearance. The first few showed elk, a moose, shadows, then clip hashtag for 7.timstamp, June 29th to 3rd 41 am. The frame was crooked, tilted downward as if someone had tried to knock the camera off the tree. But what it caught by accident, made Jess freeze. A figure crawling slowly. Weakly she enlarged the frame, her breath caught. Haley face smudged with dirt, clothes torn, knees scraped raw. She looked toward the camera like she knew it was there, like she was praying it was recording. Then she mouthed something. No audio. Jess rewound. Watched her lips. Once, twice. 5 times. He said no one would ever believe me. Jess's hands shook. The camera glitched. Frame scrambled for a second. Then, a shadow, long, lurching, moving toward Haley from behind. Haley looked up, her mouth opened as if to scream, and the clip ended, just like that. Wynn returned from his trip with supplies and found Jess still at the desk, still staring at the paused footage. Jesus, he muttered, stepping closer. That's her. Jess nodded. Weeks after they called her dead. She was alive. She was held. Wynn lowered into the chair beside her, who had access to this shed. For rangers, Jess replied. All reassigned. All unreachable. She clicked through more folders. One file sat alone. .do_not_delete.mov. She opened it. Static. Then Haley, again closer. Now directly in front of the lens, tear-streaked. Her voice barely audible under the wind. If you find this, please. Tell Jess I tried. He's not just a person. He believes what he's doing. He thinks. He's saving us from the world. That the world ruins girls, and he saves them before it happens. He said it's a mercy, but it's not. It's hell. Jess backed away from the screen like it had slapped her. Wynn turned toward her. This changes everything. She shook her head. No. It confirms what I already knew. She paced the floor. We take it to the press. Wynn sighed. We can try, but they'll ask why it wasn't turned in sooner. Why it wasn't in evidence, why the park didn't disclose it. They'll say it's faked, Jess whispered. They'll say it's you. Jess turned, eyes flaring. I'm not backing down. I didn't say you should. The next morning, Jess emailed the clip to 3 journalists, 2 podcasters, and 1 anonymous leak forum. She uploaded a copy to the cloud and scheduled it to release. Publicly, in 48 hours, Les stopped. She wasn't leaving it to chance anymore. But as she walked out to her car, something was different. The air felt thinner. She reached for her door and saw it, scrawled in ash across the windshield. Belief is a weapon. She stared at the message until Wynn joined her. They're watching, he muttered. They never stopped. That night, Jess slept with the lights on, but not before writing her own message. On a torn piece of trail map, she scribbled, I saw the tape. I believe you. She folded it and left it in Haley's locket. The voicemail went out at 6:23 a.m. Trailhead, Jess said, her voice flat. One last place on Haley's map. Then I'm done. I promise. It was the last anyone heard from her. By noon, Wynn was calling non-stop. No answer. By 4 p.m. Her car was found parked cleanly at the summit of Elks Hollow Ridge. Windows intact. Doors locked. Inside, a half-empty water bottle, an open field guide, and Haley's spiral sketch taped to the glove box. Her phone, gone. No signal trail. No GPS ping. A ranger stumbled across her camp at dusk. Tent zipped from the inside. Bag, untouched, boots placed side by side at the entrance. It was Haley's scene. All over again. Wynn arrived just after dark. The moment he stepped into the clearing, his stomach turned. Not from fear familiarity. It was like stepping into the past, into failure that had grown teeth. Same setup, he muttered. Same message. The ranger beside him shifted nervously. You think she staged it? Wynn's voice cracked. No, he did. The next morning, the headlines hit. Second Bishop daughter, missing in Yellowstone, sister of vanished camper, disappears under eerie circumstances. Online forums lit up with theories, copycats, conspiracies. Some accused Jess of faking it for fame, others called her unstable. But one voice cut through the noise. A hunter, his name was Ray Mallory. Mid-60s, grizzled, spent more nights in the woods than at home. He didn't trust media, didn't trust feds. But Wynne found him because of a one-line post on a survivalist board. Saw her, not lost, taken. Wynne drove out himself. Ray sat on a porch littered with old boots and hunting knives. He didn't rise to greet him. I wasn't gonna say anything, he began. But I seen her yesterday, near Devil's Bluff. She was walking slow like drugged. Wynne narrowed his eyes. Alone? Ray shook his head. No, something. Was dragging her. Wynne's breath caught? Something, man, but not right. Too tall, too smooth. Didn't walk like a man. Didn't move like one, either. Could you see his face? No, but I saw hers. She looked straight at me. Ray rubbed the bridge of his nose. She didn't scream, just stared back at the station. Wynne tore into the map again. Devil's Bluff. A ridgeline near where Haley's final mark lay. An area avoided even by park veterans. The problem? The bluff had burned in the 1980s. Satellites showed nothing but ash and regrowth, except their newest drone pass was a void. A black shape where trees refused to grow. Wynne zoomed in. And in the center, a circle, stone clean. Unnatural Jess was gone. But Wynne knew she wasn't buried yet. No, this time, it felt different. This time, it felt orchestrated, like someone wanted her to come, like she had been baited. That night, Wynne sat alone in the old ranger outpost. The fire crackled. The laptop glowed dimly in the corner. Jess's last trail cam file was still open, still paused on Haley's broken face, whispering for help. He hit play again and watched, frame by frame, something he hadn't noticed before. Behind Halle barely visible a shape, not Jude too tall, too wide, that stood just outside the ritual circle, watching, not intervening. Like a priest at the altar, or a judge, Wynne whispered to the empty room. You weren't working alone. Outside, Wynne screamed through the trees like a warning. Inside the tent, left behind, Jess's notebook remained open to the final page. Scrawled in rushed, shaking pen, it wasn't just him. The forest listens. It wants something. The storm hit early and unexpected. Violent winds howled across the peaks of Yellowstone like the forest itself was trying to bury something. Paul Landry, a solo snowshoer from Montana, was halfway through his return loop when he spotted the cave. At first, he thought it was just another bear den, long sealed by snowdrift and time. But something about the stillness made him stop. Then he heard it. A sound half gasp, half growl leaking out between the icicles. He radioed in a distress, signaled and crawled through the narrow mouth of the den, his headlamp flickering against frost-covered rock. That's when he saw her, a woman, curled into herself, barely conscious. Her face was raw from cold, lips split, bleeding, her left boot gone. Her fingers wrapped tightly around something in her lap. He moved slowly, murmuring comfort. You're okay, you're found. Her head lifted just enough. Her eyes met his and she whispered one word, journal. At the hospital, the media descended like wolves. Survivor of Yellowstone disappearances found a live second Bishop daughter located after mysterious vanishing, but Jess wasn't giving interviews, yet. Doctors said it was a miracle. She'd lasted even 2 days, let alone weeks. Her body was failing, but her grip on the journal hadn't loosened, even under sedation. Wynne was the first allowed to see her. She didn't speak right away, just blinked. Slowly, then handed him the book. The cover was leather-blackened, frayed. Inside chaos Haley's cramped handwriting. Pages torn, doodles, poems, schedules, then, halfway through, darkness, full pages describing him, Jude, the way he'd found her, the way he talked, the way he twisted fear into affection. He calls it preservation. Says the world doesn't deserve. US says he's making us pure again. Further in, Jess's handwriting took over. Disjointed at first, then clearer, more determined. He drugged me. I woke up tied to a pine beam. Same place Haley described. Same circle. Same ritual. It wasn't just Jude. There was something else, watching like it gave him permission. There were sketches, trees, spirals, eyes carved into bark, and finally, on the back cover, scratched deep into the leather, Jude Matthews, kill me before he finds this. Wynne stared at the journal until his hands trembled. He called in every favor, every contact. Within hours, an arrest warrant for Jude Matthews was drafted. But by then, he was gone. Cabin, burned. Trail, covered. Identity, dissolved as if he'd never existed at all. When Jess finally spoke, it wasn't to the media. It was to Haley's photo taped to her hospital wall. I got it out, she whispered. You mattered. Wynne visited her again before discharge. You gave them truth, he said. Jess looked out the window, where snow still fell silently. They'll twist it. Maybe they'll say it was trauma. Delirium. Make it poetic. Wynne nodded. But the names are real now. The place is real. She turned back. Her voice was flat but steady. He's not the only one. The journal sparked national headlines. Documentaries, investigations. FBI teams combed the backwoods. Ritual sites, unmarked graves, spiral carvings. They found 5 more. Different years, different states, same signature. Publicly, they called it a network of reclusive cultists. Unsubscribers from society. Privately, they called it something else. The pattern in the pines. Jess didn't stay quiet. She wrote articles, sat through interviews, published excerpts of Haley's story in The Atlantic. She never used Jude's full name on record. She wanted the world to stop romanticizing monsters. He wasn't mysterious. He wasn't deep. He was a coward with charm. But even years later, she still had nightmares, not of Jude, of it. The thing in the trees, watching, waiting, letting it all happen. Jess moved. Far from Yellowstone, but never stopped looking over her shoulder. Sometimes, she'd find pine needles on her porch, though no trees grew nearby. Once, she found a hair tie blue floral tucked into her mailbox. She didn't report it. She just burned it. Still, she kept one page of Haley's journal framed above her desk. The last thing Haley ever wrote. If no one ever finds me, I hope at least the forest remembers I was here. Jess made sure it did.